Hello again. Thanks for having me back over. I'd like to tell you one today. This is basically set in White County. There's a place down out of Dole over toward, as we say, over toward Hodges. There's a place called Bethel Hollow. Now my friend Michael, who's doing the recording here, was raised inside of Bethel Hollow. His family, his parents, grandparents, all very familiar with Bethel Hollow. When I first moved to Dole area in the middle 60s, Bethel Hollow, even in daylight, was kind of a dark, scary looking place. It's not like that anymore. They've widened the road, cut a lot of trees, and someone even built a house down in Bethel Hollow. Years ago, there used to be a lot of strange sightings of things there in Bethel Hollow. Michael's grandfather, late Earl Davis, had requested that I research this story. There used to be a story about Bethel Hollow, and Michael's great-grandfather, the late Cos Davis, could tell it very well. I heard him tell it when I was probably in my 20s, but it wasn't a big deal then. I didn't know someday I would want to know that story. So I don't know exactly what happened, but there's been several people down through the years, maybe especially if you were riding a horse or a mule through Bethel Hollow at night, they'd realize something had gotten on behind them. Ray Savage, who a lot of you may know him, he's a retired minister here in White County now. His grandfather, Clint Savage, had this experience there one time. He was riding a mule through there after dark one night. He had been plowing over across the river. He had a pistol, a single-shot pistol, in his waistband that he was heading because it was pretty snaky where he had been plowing, and he was, of course, walking behind the mule plowing, and he was very cautious about the snakes. Something got on behind him and was holding on to him, and he managed to draw his pistol and got it around by his side and fired. When he got home and lit a lantern there in the barn, the mule was covered with blood on his hindquarters. But he went back, took a lantern, and went back to Bethel Hollow. There was no sign of any blood or anything there. Now, this was Uncle Clint Savage's story. I never got to meet him, but I heard a lot about him. Other people saw things. Mr. Herschel Guy stopped there on the side of the road one night for some reason, and a woman got in the truck with him that he didn't know, and she never spoke, but she indicated she wanted to go forward. He asked her, "Do I need to take you somewhere?" And she pointed. He drove about 10 feet, he said, and she did like that. And he stopped, and she got out. He didn't see where she went. When she got out of the truck, she was gone. I don't know what was behind these sightings, what it was, but with the help of some friends, I've concocted a story that might explain some of this. A lot of the people that saw something there described it as being a headless girl or woman, young woman, probably an Indian from her dress, a Native American Indian. And so this is a story, and as I say, I've had some help on it. I've talked to several people, and we have kind of concocted a story that might explain. Back in the 1700s, there was a village of Cherokee Indians that lived there in the hollow. And their chief was a man named Crooked Horn. Apparently, they were often named for things that they saw in them. Was a buffalo or a deer or something that had a crooked horn that they saw about the time he was born, evidently. He was quite prosperous. He did well. He had 4 daughters who were, good-sized girls. But he didn't have a son, and this bothered him. He really wanted a son. At some point in time, he led a raid down into Alabama. They raided a Creek Indian village. Of course, it was not Alabama then, but it's where Alabama is now. They went across the Tennessee River there, close to Scottsboro, Alabama, and raided a village, got a large herd of horses and other plunder, and of course, I'm sure they killed a lot of people. But he brought back a little boy, Creek Indian boy. But he adopted him into the Cherokee tribe and adopted him as his son. On the way back of their trip, they were driving their horses back home. One of his warriors asked him, "What are you going to name the boy?" Well, there was thunder in the hills around them. You could hear the thunder rolling. And he named the boy Thunder in the Hills. Most everybody just called him Thunder. After he was grown, some of the old tribal elders decided that it was good that they called him Thunder because he was kind of like the thunder. He made a lot of noise, but he wasn't much good for anything. After he had adopted Thunder, he and his wife had another daughter, Whispering Dove. Although his older daughters were pretty, Whispering Dove was the prettiest of all. A very pretty young lady. As she got older, all the boys there in the village wanted to court her. Even Thunder wanted to, but the chief told him, "You can't court her, she's your sister." And he would always reply to the chief, "But I'm adopted, we're not really kin." He'd say, "Yes, you are kin." Well, there was another village of Cherokee that lived not too far from there, over what now we call Sparkmantown area. There was a young brave from that village that had seen Whispering Dove, and he was very smitten with her. His name was Eagle that Soars High. Probably they had seen an eagle about the time he was born, but he was called Eagle that Soars High. Most of the people just called him Eagle. Well, Eagle came courting, and she was very impressed with him. He was a very nice young man. He asked permission from Crooked Horn to come and visit with Whispering Dove, and Crooked Horn liked him, and he permitted him to come. Well, Crooked Horn, like some of us get as age comes on, their teeth are not as good as they used to be, and he liked venison, deer meat, but he couldn't chew the older, mature meat. He liked about a half-grown one. So one day, Eagle comes, and he's leading a pony behind him. Here's a full-grown deer carcass and about a half-grown one, too. It's tied down on the back of the horse. He presents them. Of course, the full-grown deer will feed pretty much the whole village, and the young deer will be meat for Crooked Horn to eat. And Thunder was very jealous. He didn't like Eagle. He didn't like him coming around. At some earlier time, he had managed to come up with some type of poison, probably strychnine, but so he slips out when nobody is aware of it and poisons both the deer carcasses. The people cook the deer meat, and most of the village gets sick. None of them die from it, but they get very sick. Although Crooked Horn ate a lot, he hadn't had any young deer meat in a while, and he really ate a lot. He died from it. Well, Thunder puts out the word that Eagle has poisoned the village. Whispering Dove knows better. She knows what Thunder has done, and she tries to tell the tribal elders, but they won't listen to her. And after all, Thunder is the chief's son, and this carries a lot of weight. And so they get their heads together and they decide that Eagle needs to be punished. They go to his village and they tell what has happened and what their findings are. The villagers in that village didn't like giving him up, but they, at the same time, they felt like it was the right thing to do if he had poisoned the other village. So they give him up, turn him over to them. They intend to question him more, but the next morning when they get up, they have tied him to a post. He is dead. He's been killed during the night. And Whispering Dove knows that Thunder has killed Eagle. But she cannot convince the elders that this is what has happened. Also, Thunder declares himself not to be adopted, and of course all of the older people know that. And he says that Crooked Horn told him shortly before he died it would be all right if he married Whispering Dove. So he marries Whispering Dove. She runs away. And she is lost in the woods at night. She don't know what's going to happen to her, but she knows anything would be better than being married to Thunder. She hates him. It's getting daylight, and she realizes she's not gone nearly far enough, and they will find her shortly when it's daylight. She has a sash tied around her waist. She unties that sash, ties it to a limb, and hangs herself rather than to marry him. It is the opinion of more knowledgeable people than myself about ghosts and spirits that what they were seeing when something got on the horse or mule behind them was the ghost of Whispering Dove trying to find Eagle, be reunited with him. And that's the legend of Bethel Hollow.